Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Grinding Gear Games today announced patch 3.20.2b for Bravo. Normally these minor patches I don't put out a video on, but this one has a couple of important quality of life changes that even though they don't affect the majority of the player base, they will be a big improvement for large minorities, and as a result you'll find that a lot of players will be quite happy to see this. Ultimately, this patch is being done because of the upcoming March events, so that's the reason that it has to be pushed out this week rather than being deferred and all of these rolled into the next major patch that happens. Firstly, there is the support for the March events, so with Ruthless with Gold starting in a couple of days' time, and then after that there's the group SSF events that are starting over the following weeks. If you want more info on those, there's also an announcement post. I'll put a link to that down in the description below, as well as a video that I put out on it. Next, there's going to be 400 more foiled unique items added to the Voidborn Reliquary Key. Now, with the way that the Voidborn Reliquary Key works, if these new items bias towards the rarer end of the spectrum, then that's going to result in the Voidborn Reliquary Key itself becoming rarer. If they bias towards a more common end, then you'll find that this will make the Voidborn Reliquary Key itself more common. That information we're not going to find out, something that will eventually sort of come up when people do very large sample size farming. But I think we're going to see constant changing in the Voidborn Reliquary Key over time. The last time that someone did a significant test with it, it was about 4 times rarer than the Divine Orb. But if it turns out that a lot of these new foiled uniques are things like Tabula or Wasp Nest that are pretty common uniques, then maybe it'll be 3 times as rare as a Divine Orb in future. And if it turns out that they're mostly things like Mage Blood or Divinaris or various other rare items, then it might be 5 or 6 times as rare as a Divine Orb going forward. We don't know. We're not going to know for a while. Next, we have 2 quality of life changes that are really important. Firstly, the Eater of Worlds Dash Slam. Now, most players refer to this as the Hunger Slam. The visuals on this are going to be updated so that they more accurately reflect the damaging area. This is purely a visual change, so it's still going to hit the same area, but that's just going to be more clearly communicated. This change probably should have happened back in 3.17. The best time was 9 months ago. The second best time, though, is now. And the next significant change is being made to Ralakesh's Impatience. This is a very rare set of boots that get played with on a number of builds, but are probably at their best on trappers. What they do is, when you're stationary, they set your charges, power, frenzy, and endurance to maximum, and then when you move, you lose all those charges. The thing is that the action of going from being stopped to moving is something players do a lot, and having an audio cue on that is kind of distracting, and not just distracting, but really infuriatingly so. So that is being removed. Ralakesh's Impatience will suppress that sound so that you won't have to put up with that annoyance every time that you move around whilst wearing Ralakesh's Impatience boots. There's a couple of little changes to the PathOfExile website, and probably the more significant one is that the Voidborn Reliquary Key is going to be available on the bulk item exchange. This will be particularly useful if you're the sort of person that decides, I'm completely finished with the Sanctum League, but got a whole bunch of valuable stuff in it. I'm going to convert all of that into Divine Orbs, and then I'm going to convert Divine Orbs into Voidborn Reliquary Keys and have a little bit of fun turning them in. If you're in this situation, this is just going to be a quality of life improvement that will make it easier for you to lose all of your currency at the end of the league. Now, there's a couple of changes to the functionality of the unique helmet Forbidden Shako. These are going to be very important to maybe 1 player in 50, and completely ignored by 49 players in 50. But they're worth knowing about in case you ever want to build around this helmet. Forbidden Shako, if it grants 2 supports that both grant secondary skills, such as Impending Doom and Predator, they will both work in the future. This is not something that's usually going to have much impact on the way you play the game. However, fixed a bug where support gems granted by Forbidden Shako that have a secondary skill effect, such as Impending Doom's Doom Blast, could be supported by another support gem granted by Forbidden Shako, such as increased area of effect. This feels a bit counterintuitive to me. I assume it's part of the same fix that was responsible for the first one, but this is going to result in a nerf to a very small number of Forbidden Shakos. There's also a number of other little changes related to items such as the Hungry Loop, which isn't used very much anymore, and the Eternal Struggle when it drops out of the Voidborn Reliquary Key, but probably most significant in the bug fixes section. Fixed a bug where Dominus was not saying any of his combat voice lines, so we will see the Touch of God back again. There's also a bug fix that will affect maybe 1 player in 10 in Standard, so again, a small percentage of the overall player base, but still an important fix, where the map stash tabs were unable to be converted into the current map series because of bugs with hidden maps. These are going to be fixed, and hopefully that will solve a lot of the problems that those Standard League players have been facing. Anyways, that is the patch. As I said, it's a bunch of quality of life changes and a few changes that affect a small minority of the player base, but that still will be important changes for those people. That's all I got on this. May your Val Orbs have interesting results, and I'll see you around.